So I used to play a lot of EVE Online. It's an extremely fun game, and I think it's the only game like it that has ever existed. I'm not an MMO guy in general, and I feel like the only other game that might be a little bit like EVE is RuneScape, but that's mostly because of the scamming. Speaking of scamming, let's talk about capitalism. Okay, maybe that's a bit unfair, but before we start this in earnest, let's realize that EVE Online is a video game designed to be fun for its players. And it does a very good job at that. I am by no means saying that CCP Games is some secret Marxist commune up there in Iceland trying to teach us about the evils of Das Kapital. No, they're a video game company that makes a good video game that people are supposed to enjoy. And there is nothing wrong with that. All that being said, I do think the game does come with a bit of maybe an inadvertent critique of big-time capitalism. So for those of you who don't know, the player characters in EVE Online are so-called capsuleers, also known sometimes as Empyreans. Basically, a capsuleer is a high-tech god that can control massive spaceships with their mind. And also, even when they die, they just wake up in a new body with all their memories intact. Worst case scenario, you lose some money on expensive implants that you had installed in the other body that was destroyed. Now, in theory, anyone can become a capsuleer, but in practice, it is a very dangerous and arduous and difficult process that does bear some risk of actual death. It is also insanely expensive. For those of you who have played EVE, have you ever considered the financial means of a capsuleer? Like, actually considered how much money they have within the context of the EVE universe? Now, EVE is famous for having these huge space battles that can be measured in actual dollars roundabout, because you can buy Plex, like game time, with real world currency, and then sell those Plex on the in-game market to other players. And so though the dollar to ISK exchange rate varies, there is an exchange rate, although I suppose technically it's not an exchange rate because you can't buy dollars for ISK, but you can buy ISK for dollars. However, that's not what I'm talking about. I am talking about how much EVE money is worth within the context of the EVE game lore. And after a bit of research, I found a very large number of estimates, actually. I'm not entirely sure which one of them is correct, because they all said this is based off of actual game lore, but I'm just gonna go with the most conservative one. One ISK. One single ISK is about 100,000 US dollars. That's a six-figure salary. In a lot of places, that puts you in the top 1% of society. A decently sized upper middle class family could live off that in like actual real good comfort for a whole year. I personally know people who could live off that kind of money for a full decade. That is one ISK. Back when I started EVE, this might have since changed, every capsuleer starts the game with 5 million ISK. That is 500 billion US dollars. Yet in capsuleer terms, you are piss poor. It is not surprising then to find out that in-game, ISK is just a separate currency that most people don't use. It is a specific rich people currency for rich people and corporations and governments. Because in in-game terms, a starting capsuleer is part of the top 0.1% of the top 0.1% of the EVE universe. That is how unfathomably rich capsuleers are. These right here are the starter ships in EVE Online. Each empire has one, with their costs converted into dollars. What's important to know here is that if you show up at any station in a capsule and you don't have a spaceship at that station, you will just get one of these for free. All prices are of course calculated off the cheapest purchase price I could find today at G4 Moon 4 Caldari Navy Assembly Plant, which is the heart of the EVE player economy. Now granted, the prices for starter ships can be a bit iffy and weird and fluctuate a lot because essentially they are kind of free. So let's instead look at some of the higher tier ships that you can purchase on the market from players, also the ones that you'll actually want to fly. This right here is the Manticore Stealth Bomber, which I personally used to just love zipping around nullsec with. It's worth 2,712 billion. That is a couple hundred billion more than the nominal GDP of India. This is the Oracle, in my opinion, the most gorgeous ship in all of EVE. A game where competition is really quite steep for that title. It can be gotten for 9,247 billion, which is about half the nominal GDP of the entire European Union. Right here we have a Navy-issued Tempest battleship floating at a reasonable price of 47,500 billion, also known as literally more than twice the GDP of the United States of America. And last but not least, we have the Anshar, one of the highest capacity trade ships in EVE, and one of the few kinds of ship with a jump drive allowed in high-sec space, at a leisurely 912,900 billion, aka like 10 times the GDP of the entire Earth as it is now put together. And this is just the ships, by the way, just the empty hulls. They still need to be fitted with some expensive ass equipment and stocked with like nanites and ammunition and what have you. Capsuleers tend to just have a lot of these ships. I mean, not all of them, obviously. I mean, not like only like big bulk traders that have business in nullsec will actually even spec into flying jump freighters. There is, however, a saying which is never fly a ship you can't afford to lose. This means that the capsuleers in this game have so much money that they can afford to lose a ship that is worth more than the entire global economy of Earth produces over the course of 10 years. And at that point, the disparity between rich and poor isn't just speciation anymore. It is the literal difference between being a mortal and being an actual god that can survive being atomized in a cloud of super hot plasma. Because contrary to popular belief, the moment that you destroy anything larger than a frigate in EVE Online, actual crew people die. Don't get me wrong, capsuleers do reduce the crew requirements for ships significantly, but only with the really small ones do they reduce them to zero. A battleship like the Oracle has thousands of crew people working under the capsuleers, and their very high salaries aren't even considered by any capsuleer because they don't need to be. They are so diminutive. And when they all just die, have their existence ended forever, for a capsuleer, that is a financial loss that they can get reimbursed by insurance money. Which, FYI, buy platinum insurance before you leave the station with your ship. It's very important to do that. Much like all of the other underlying systems in this game, the way that the capsuleers experience the entire economy that isn't player-driven is built in a way that benefits the capsuleers. The only people that'll try to fuck you over are other players. When it comes to like government, taxes, banks, insurance companies, all of that crap, it's all designed to benefit capsuleers the most. Almost to the extent where you think, hey, how does this insurance thing actually make money if they just pay out capsuleers all the time? Well, that's all of the other people in the EVE universe that aren't ultra-billionaires getting fucked by those insurance companies all of the time so they can pay out you. I mean, of course, the reason for this is game design. You don't want to have a game where you just have to like mortgage your house and then you default on a payment and then the people come by to abduct your kids and sell them into slavery at the sheet metal factory. But this is how the economy actually behaves if you are unfathomably rich. All of the money just flows toward you. And then you use that money to have hegemony fights in nullsec, where hundreds of millions, if not billions of crew members die every day because you wanted to have fun gate camping. Worst that can happen to you is you lose a couple bucks. Now, of course, nobody actually dies. This video game, the moral weight of all this isn't with the players. They're just normal people wanting to have some fun. But this level of distancing from reality that unfathomable wealth provides That is what it feels like to be a billionaire. That is what it feels like to be a financial god who doesn't even consider the risk that they put actual real mortal people in because they want to take their gold-plated shuttle out for a joyride. And even though obviously the economy of the EVE universe is much bigger than the economy of our world, there's still people living there in just abject poverty. There is actual real slavery in EVE Online. And personally, I really like that the game and the world is like this because it's just so unintentional, you know? People don't really think about how incredibly rich they are in in-game terms, which I think, you know, even though it is not on purpose, that kind of does say a little bit about the human condition. We live in a society. Thank you very much for watching this video. Like, comment, subscribe, do all the things. Share this to your relevant communities, but do not spam them. Consider supporting me on Subscribestar, or maybe Patreon, buying some of my merchandise, or my short story collection. And in that spirit, the camera is about to go out, so see you around, cunts.